if let's say I'm a director of operations at
Okay.
a, paper mill. I don't even know. I'm just a paper mill, and I
Sure.
know that I have inefficiencies in my process. I know that the culture is not one that I feel like I can change. I can't go up to my executive board and change them, or I don't want to, whatever. But I understand that I can improve my process. Can I hire an expert to come in and just fix my processes so that I have lower costs, so that I'm producing more product with the same amount of resources, so that I can, clearly that's going to have a cost to me, but I'm going to get a lot
Sure.
of benefit for the long term. I realize now that I'm not necessarily teaching my team to fix problems on their own, but I'm fixing a lot of bottlenecks that are going to help our operation. Can I do that? Is that an appropriate implementation of Lean Six Sigma?
Mike, that's a great question. I'm going to say we would love it if every deployment of our customers was top-down driven, leadership, management totally engaged, and alignment took place with the organization. Every project was strategically linked to business indicators and so on. We would love that. That happens, and I'm going to throw out a percentage. It may or may not be correct. I mean, it depends on industries and so on. But I'm going to say 25, 35% of the time. And sometimes a customer calls up and says, we want a full deployment. Other times, a customer will call us up and say, you know what, we have a problem. We have a fuel leak problem, or we have a first pass yield problem, or we have a scrap rate that has just gone out of the roof. We can no longer tolerate it, or we're getting ready to automate, and we have a process that we're producing defects at this rate, and we know that as soon as we automate, it's now become very efficient at producing defects because it's now 100 times faster or whatever. And they will call us, and just in the last, I'm going to say 6 months, we've probably had about 6 companies that have had us come in and specifically help them solve an issue. And you can do that, several ways. We've had a company that says, you come in, you do what's necessary to solve that problem. We don't care if it gets you into design of experiment. We'll get data for you and so on, and we'll come in and we'll do that. And we'll solve their issue. And they're very happy. They pay their money and so on.
And they receive their benefit, and everybody moves on.
Their benefit, and they're happy. And you know what? Their bosses, their leadership are happy because the issue is solved, minimized cost, but they saw proof of concept. So now leadership knows it works. That's the one benefit. I mean, that's a benefit there in addition to solving the problem.
Right.
We've had other companies that said, okay, we want you to come in. We're going to give you a team that is not well versed in Lean Six Sigma, but we're going to give you a team. We're going to give you team members that are now going to be available for on-the-job training. In other words, as necessarily, real time, you will train them in the tools and the techniques they need at that time as you help them solve the problem. Okay? And that works because the problem gets solved, and it's happened most recently with us. Problem gets solved, and now you leave, and there's an energized team that now gets credit from the leadership and the management sponsorship for having solved a problem.
Right.
The nice thing about this is they now have a skill set or a knowledge of some tools and techniques that will maybe benefit them and help them initially maybe identify a problem and start solving it on their own. Okay, they may come back to us again, whatever. So yes, to answer your question, you can, as a business, decide, you know what, we just need the problem solved and then we'll move on. I don't necessarily want to engage in a full Lean Six Sigma deployment right now. And you can do that. And it can be very, very successful.